Good evening, all. I'd like to welcome the resource person, Dr. Nelson Justin Michael, Director, Center for Research, Christianity College, and all the participants on this forum for the day third of this FTP. Topic will be discussed today is co-integration. Now over to the resource person.
Good evening, friends. So it is nice to meet you again. This evening, we'll be taking a little complex topic, but I think I'll try to make it a little simple and understandable. And today, I think the handout is already shared with you. Also, I will be once again sharing that handout during the session as well. So we'll be taking three topics today: co-integration, vector error correction, and then we'll be taking error correction. Vector error correction, we'll take it on another day. Today, we'll do error correction modeling and causality. So we'll be taking three topics, right? So I think all of you have a copy of the handout. So in case you don't, I will once again share it. So let us start with that because we have a lot to finish today. So I don't want to take too much of your time. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. Right. Yeah. So here we have it. Okay. Right. So we're going to see what is co-integration first, and then we'll go for error correction, and then we'll go in for causality. Towards the end, we'll have Jyoti ma'am who will be joining us. So in case you have any doubts in certain techniques, so you can also have an idea later. Right. So yesterday, we discussed about stationarity and non-stationarity and how to really do away with the non-stationarity in a time series so that it can be used for analysis. So before we go on to that, so in statistics, there was a dilemma because the condition for regression is that the two time series that you're going in for regression, they have to be stationary. But then they noticed that if you ran a regression, sometimes it so happened that two non-stationary time series, the regression or the residuals of the regression, they seem to be having a stationary process. They seem to be having a stationary process. So for a long time in statistics, they said that it was a spurious regression. The regression coefficient which they found was spurious, that it is erroneous, because it was first of all not fulfilling the condition that it has to be stationary, even though the result proved to be having a stationary residual. So they called it as spurious. Then we had a set of econometricians, chief among them being the persons whom we'll be talking about today, Engel and Granger. So these two gentlemen, econometricians, they try to say that you cannot call it as a regression. You can call it as a co-integrating regression, or you can call it as a co-integrating, or you can call it as co-integration, right? So that's what they said. So when you run a regression for two non-stationary time series or a set of non-stationary time series, and then you find out that the residuals are stationary, you don't call it as a regression, you call it as a co-integration. So that is the starting point of the theory. So let us go into what is the meaning of co-integration. So let us assume that you have two non-stationary time series. So at level, they're non-stationary, but once you difference them, they become stationary. So we call it as they are integrated at order 1. So they integrated at order 1. Individually, these two series are stochastic. That is to say, they have a random probability distribution. You're not able to predict anything. So you can do some statistical analysis, but you're not able to predict. But their combination is linear. Their combination. That is to say, the equation, the regression itself, when you do the regression, you find that they are integrated at the level itself, not after differencing, at the level itself. So this relationship is called as co-integration. You don't call it as regression. You call it as a co-integration or a co-integrating regression. I always give an example of marriage. So it is like two individuals, a couple. a young man and a young woman on their own. So they have their own ways. They have their own ways. So they have their own independence, their own freedom. There are a lot of limitations. There are, like, you have a lot of shortcomings in them. But when they come together in marriage, there are a lot of adjustments. So the adjustments, we call it as differencing. So the marriage is perfect. So they're able to complement each other, and then they're able to live happily. So that marriage is called as co-integration, like two stochastic individuals who are coming together to live happily and have a very linear relationship. You can call that as co-integration. So co-integration, it does not start off by looking at the data. It starts off, first of all, with some theory. There should be some theoretical background. There should be some connection between the variables that we are studying. For example, you have a lot of economic theories. So you have the purchasing power parity theory, which says that the exchange rate is affected by the inflation. Okay, so there is some relationship between inflation and exchange rate. So if inflation in one country, let us take two countries, for example, let us take India and let us take USA. If inflation in India is higher than inflation in the United States of America, the theory says that the exchange rate of the dollar will appreciate. So the dollar will appreciate and the rupee will depreciate in terms of the dollars. That is a theory. So you are studying the relationship between two variables. That is, you have inflation on one side, and then you have the exchange rate of the US dollar. So you have two variables. So let us say you are trying to observe whether there is any, first of all, there should be some theoretical connection. So you want to run a regression between these two, and then you notice that both these variables are not stationary. So the first condition of running a regression is not fulfilled. And therefore, what do? You difference them. And once you difference at second, that is the first order, after differencing once, you notice that both these series, they become stationary. Okay, you run a regression and then you notice that the residuals are stationary, and therefore this is a co-integrating relationship. Another theory is the Fisher effect. It says that yesterday we saw that the interest rate is influenced by inflation. So there is a connection between inflation and interest rate. So if inflation in a particular country relative to another goes up, automatically the interest rate also will be going up. Or international Fisher effect, which says that there is a connection between relationship between interest rate and exchange rate. The same example, let us say interest rate in India is moving up relative to the interest rate in America. So according to the international Fisher effect theory, the exchange rate of the US dollar will appreciate. And from economics, you have the very, very popular theory which talks about the relationship between consumption and income. So as income goes up, your consumption also will go up. So it is not like, when the consumption goes up, the income goes up, people start working harder and so on. So there is some theoretical background. So any kind of a co-integration, before running the co-integration, we need to first of all understand that there has to be a theoretical connection. There has to be a theoretical connection. Only then we will be able to run the co-integration. So I hope the theory is very clear to you. So for co-integration, there has to be, it's not just two. We have, for our class today, we have taken two time series, and then we are trying to find out the relationship between the two. It can be many time series also. For example, people have studied the co-integration of stock markets of, let us say, a few countries, Asian countries. They've tried to study. So the theory is that when one country is moving forward, it will automatically be affecting the other. Or if one country is, for example, you had the famous Asian crisis. So when the Asian crisis occurred, many of the stock markets were falling down. The stock indices of various countries were going down. So they wanted to study the contagion effect. So is there a relationship between stock prices or stock indices of different stock markets, right? So that is, so it need not be just two variables, but for understanding co-integration, we're going to take two. So we're going to take two time series. So two time series, which are stochastic in themselves, but then their relationship is co-integrated. That is to say, their combination is linear or integrated at level itself. So that is the theory. And then, so before we go in for any co-integration, we need to have a strong theoretical background. We need to understand that there has to be I'm sorry. Okay, so there has to be a strong theoretical background, right? So now we are going to straight away go in for our co-integration test. So we're going to use, please open your Gretel. Please open your Gretel, right? Please open your Gretel. Open your Gretel. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to use Gujarati. So file, open, sample file, file, open data, sample file, file, open data, sample file. Please go to the last data set, that is 21.1. File, open data, sample Gujarati. So in Gujarati, 21.1. File, open data, sample file, and you're going to select Gujarati. In Gujarati, 21.1. So double click on that. Okay, so it will open a data set. So I think it is GDP in billions of dollars, personal disposable income, personal consumption expenditure, and so on. So we're going to take this exercise to understand co-integration, Okay, so all of you have opened the Gretel data set 21.1, Gujarati 21.1. Can I have a yes or no or maybe? So I want everybody, because I will be taking it very, very slowly. Only then you will be able to understand co-integration. Only if we understand co-integration, we can go for error correction. And only when you understand error correction, we can go in for causality. So everything is connected. Okay, right. Let me see if anybody's okay. So can I proceed, Jahir sir? I'm going to start off because once we start off, in case there is a kind of if somebody says no, I've not got the data, it will be a little difficult. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So we're going to now. What I want you to do is please open a Word file. So this is going to be like practically you're doing an analysis. Let us say you're writing a paper. And you're going to do the analysis part. So initially, for writing a paper, first you have your introduction. That is the first part of the paper. Then in the introductory part itself, you will have review of literature. So your review of literature here, we're going to talk about the relationship between disposable income and consumption, the very classical economic theories that you have studied probably in your first semester degree. So we're going to take that. That is to say, the connection between expenditure and income. So in your review, you would have studied across the countries how there is connection between the two. Okay. So you are observing US, whether there is connection between income and expenditure. So before we go on to that, we need to first of all see whether you can run a regression or whether it is going to be a co-integration. But then since it is co-integration class, you know that this data set cannot run a regression. If you run it, it will be a spurious regression simply because the variables that we're going to take are not stationary. They are non-stationary. Is that fine? So you have completed the first part of the paper. The second part, the second section, the second subheading in your paper will be the methodology. So in the methodology, you will be giving you'll be talking about the model specification. So for model specification, don't worry. You can take any textbook. You take the chapter on co-integration, the model specifications are given. You can use the same. So what we're going to use in the handout, you will see, I have given the model specifications given in Gujarati. So I have taken the model specification over there. Now we're going to the third part. That is analysis, the results. You're going to present the results. So please open the Word file. So keep it. So everything that we're going to do, you're going to paste it there. I think that was one of the doubts that people had. How do you copy and paste? How do you take it to Word and all that? So we'll be doing that simultaneously. So we are in the third section of your paper, right? Third section, analysis. So we're going to start. So first thing that we're going to do, so the point number 3, first thing in the handout, point number 3, what you're going to see, first of all, whether there is a relationship, whether there is a cointegration relationship. So you please select the two variables, PDI and PCE, that is personal disposable income and personal consumption expenditure. Please select the two variables. Yesterday, we saw how to create a time series plot or a time series graph. Right click, select time series plot. Select the two variables that we're going to study and select time series plot. Please select time series plot. And as we saw yesterday, it will ask you whether you want it as separate graphs or whether you want it as a simple graph. We are going to study the relationship between these two variables because our theory says that one is related to the other or one is influencing the other. So that is why. So we want to plot it on a single graph. Single graph. Give OK. Plot it on a single graph. Give OK. Okay. So you have the graph that you have got it. Please observe how these two series, the time series, are moving. You find that they're moving in the same way. They're moving in the same way. It is not like one is having a linear trend and the other one is having a non-linear trend. Both are having a linear trend. Okay, that's the first thing you observe. Both are moving in the same direction. That means as one increases, the other one also increases. Am I right? So that's how it is moving. So there seems to be a kind of an influencing relationship. So we can say that there is a possibility of a cointegration. Another observation that you can make is that there is a trend. There is a trend. That means automatically you know that the series is non-stationary just by looking at it. So please copy the graph, right click, okay, right click, copy to clipboard. So you can choose color or you can choose monochrome. You copy it, okay, and then take it to the Word file. Open a Word file. I think I have a Word file open. So take it to the Word file. Take it to the Word file. And you paste it. And you paste it, okay? The reason why the font size is very small on my screen is because I kept it at 8. So you can increase the font size. And I told you how you can edit the font yesterday. So how do you edit it? You select right click, then edit. Right click, edit. In that you can change the font, you can change the font size and all that. But let us not take too much time on that. So the first part, you have concluded that there is a possibility of a cointegration. Second, just by observing, you know that the two series are not stationary. Observation, but you have not yet proved it. You have not yet proved it. Okay, that is done. Now, let us go to the point 3.1 in your handout. You're going in for checking stationarity and determining at which order there is integration, at which order, whether it is first order, second order, etc. Right? So yesterday we saw how to test stationarity. So please look at that. First, we'll take the variable personal consumption expenditure, and then the null, I said that the null hypothesis is there is unit root. There is unit root. That means non-stationary. Alternative is there is no unit root, that meaning stationary. So if you are accepting the null, that means the series is non-stationary. If you're rejecting the null, that means the series is stationary. Okay, so let us run the test. So yesterday we did it. So select PCE. So we are in point number 3.1, the first step. So select PCE, then go to variable, and then unit root tests, augmented Dickey-Fuller test, okay? Select, and please reduce the lag order. Yesterday I told you, reduce the lag order to 0, and use level of variable, give OK. Okay, so those of you who are not there yesterday, I'm repeating again for you. Select PCE, go to variable, unit root tests, ADF. Then you'll get a pop-up box, and in that you please reduce the lag order to 0 and then give OK. Okay, give OK. Right. Now you have got the results of the unit root test, of the ADF test for unit root. So what you do, please copy it. Okay, copy it. I think this will be better. And bring it to your Word file. So please, you can give the heading. You can give the heading as like, PCE. Like, you're checking the unit root for PCE. You're checking the unit root for PCE. Please, all this will not come in your paper. All this will not come in your paper. This is just your rough analysis sheet. So you can give the heading as unit root for PCE. So it is here itself, the output itself gives you that. Okay, it is given there. Okay, so output is giving you that. Okay, so you have it for PCE. Now, yesterday we saw which values you have to see. You look at the T value and the P value. Look at the T value and the P value. I'm highlighting it over here. So all of you have it in your Word file. So you can, I'm highlighting it so that you'll know. Okay, so here it is. So you find that the T value is minus, it is there in your handout as well, minus 1.3760, and your P value is 0.86. So the conclusion is the P value is greater than 0.05. It is not significant, so the null is accepted. And what is the null? The null is there is unit root, or the series is non-stationary. So the series personal consumption expenditure is non-stationary. Is that clear? Now, so the first step is asking you also to do the differencing, So yesterday we saw the differencing. So what we'll do is, you can do the differencing now itself. Okay, let us do the differencing. So yesterday we saw how to do the differencing. So you select the variable, right click, select the variable, right click, add difference. Select the variable, right click, add difference. Select the variable, right click, add difference, and then you get the variable D underscore PCE. I think I've not given the results of that in the handout. So what should you do to find out at which order of integration the series becomes stationary? So how do you do that? Once again, so you're going to select the differenced series. So it is first differenced series of personal consumption expenditure. Select it, then go to variable, and unit root test ADF. Okay, give OK. So you will get another result. Copy it. You will get another result. Copy it. Okay. Then bring it to the Word file that you have. Paste it. Oh, it has become very big. Okay. Anyway, now it's fine. So I'm going to, so first you did the ADF for the level series of personal consumption expenditure. Now you have differenced it and you ran the ADF test once again. Please look at the results. So here you have the T value. So I'm just highlighting it. So you have the T value is minus 7.56, and the P value is less than. So whenever you find some big number with an exponential form, e with minus and all that, so you automatically understand it is less than 0.001. So I'm going to type it here. Have I given it here? No, I'm not given it in the handout. So here you can type it that P value is less than 0.001. So it's like, highly significant, 0.001. In SPSS, you will get it as 0.000. So that means that there is some some number after many digits. Okay. So that means it's highly significant. So what is your conclusion now? After differencing, you find that the P value is less than 0.01, That means the result is significant and you are rejecting the null. There is no unit root. So you are concluding now that after differencing, the series has become stationary. That is to say, the series is integrated at order 1. Which series? Personal consumption expenditure. So the first series we have checked. So it is at level, it is non-stationary, but after differencing, it becomes stationary at one difference. Okay. Now let us take the other series, that is PDI. PDI, you're going to do the same. So 3.2 in your handout. Please take PDI, personal disposable income. So we're going to check the stationarity, and then we're going to do the difference for the series PDI. So go to variable, unit root test, ADF, unit root test, ADF, okay, right? And you give OK, give OK. Give OK. So you've got the ADF test results for the series PDI, the level series. So level means you have not done any kind of defining, you've not done any kind of modification, nothing you've done. So as it is, you're taking and you're doing. So it is called as a level series. So you're going to copy the results, Okay, I'll keep it as RTF because the other one takes a lot of space and then, okay. Right. So here you have, okay, so you have pasted it. Now please look at the t value and the p value, the t value and the p value. Okay, please look at the t value and the p value. So I'm going to highlight it again. So the t value is minus 2.58 and the p value is 0.28. Okay, so what is the null? The null is there is unit root in the series PDI, that is to say non-stationary. The alternative is there is no unit root or the series is stationary. So please look at the t value and the p value. The p value is greater than 0.05. That means the result is not significant. We are going to accept the null that there is unit root in PDI. Personal disposable income series is not stationary, okay? So the previous case, personal consumption expenditure at level was not stationary. So now in the second case, personal disposable income is also not stationary at level. Now we have to just check whether we can go for differencing and then it becomes stationary. So let us do the differencing. So we're going to do the differencing. So select it, right click and add difference. Right click, add difference. So we are doing the differencing for PDI. For PCE, we have already done it. So PDI, we're going to do it. Now, after doing the differencing, we have to see whether it has become stationary. So once again, we're going to run the unit root test. So select PDI after differencing, then go to variable, unit root test, ADF, unit root test, ADF. Okay, unit root test, ADF. So you got the results, give OK, copy the results. So copy option, you just have it on top. So you just have to select it, copy. You can copy it as RTF or plain text. And then you paste it in your Word. Okay, so you paste it in your Word. I'm sorry, yeah. So there you have it. So something went off. Okay, so this should be there. So you know, sorry, just a minute. Yeah. So what do you notice? This is not there in your handout. I had not put it there. So the ADF test for differenced PDI. Okay, first level differencing, find it. Please look at the t value and the p value. So what is the null here? Null is there is unit root in the differenced series of, difference PDI series, that is to say non-stationary. Now, please look at the results. Please look at the results. So the t value is given here and the p value also is given here. The t value and the p value is given here. So you have it. So the t-value is minus 9.59. P-value, again, whenever you have a number like this, it means it is less than 0.001. The number, it means it is less than, so p-value is less than, p-value is less than 0.001. Is that fine? So the p-value is less than 0.05. It is significant, so you're rejecting the null. That is to say, the difference series of PDI is stationary. So after differencing it once, it has become stationary. So we call this series integrated at order integrated of order 1. Okay, right. So both the series are integrated at order 1. So both after differencing, they have become stationary. Okay, so that is the first step. Now we're going to the second step was differencing it. Then we are going to the third step. So the condition for cointegration is you have two series which are non-stationary, but their combination is linear, or their combination or the residuals of that combination is stationary. So that's how we'll be checking. So let us do the cointegration model specification. Step number 3. Step number 3. Okay. So let us do that. Just a minute. Somebody has asked something. Can you repeat the steps from the beginning? Can you please repeat? I lost my network. What we interpret from higher or lower. Okay. So Nitish sir, over here for stationarity for unit root test, you're looking at the p-value. So if the p-value is significant, if the p-value is less than 0.05, that means the result is significant, and then you're going to reject the null, that there is unit root. If the p-value is greater than 0.05, that means the result is not significant, you're going to accept the null. Okay, so for some of you have asked me to repeat that once again. So I will tell you for one particular series. So that is point number 3.1 and 3.2. That is what we had done in the handout. I think it is very clear in the handout. You can just read that out and carry it out. I have given the process in Gretel also, but just since some of you asked, I'll repeat again. So first of all, you're looking at the series PCE. So series PCE, we have to check whether it is stationary. So the condition for cointegration is that the two series or the number of series that you're taking, they are not stationary at level, but then they become stationary at one particular level. So here you have PCE. So how do you find out whether it is stationary or not? Go to variable, unit root test, and then ADF. Unit root test and then ADF. Unit root test and then ADF. So you give OK, you give OK. Okay, you give OK. Then when you do that, you will get the results. Copy it and paste it. Copy it and paste it. Copy it and paste it. So I have it here already. So I'm going back in my Word file. Okay, so copy it and paste it, right? Okay, so the ADF test for personal consumption expenditure is there. And then please look at the t value and the p value. P value is 0.86. It is greater than 0.05. So you are accepting the null, saying that there is a unit root in PCE, or PCAE is non-stationary. After that, what you do is you difference it. You difference it. That is nothing but select the variable, add differencing. After you do the differencing, once again, you conduct the unit root test, and then you report the result. So the result tells you that the p-value is less than 0.001. 0.001. That means you're rejecting the null, and then you're accepting the alternative to say that the series has become stationary. Series has become stationary after differencing. After differencing. Okay. So now we're going to the cointegration model. We're going to the cointegration model. So let us try the cointegration. So it is there in point 3.3. 3.3. Okay. So I have given the cointegration model specification that is taken directly from Gujarati, from the textbook by Gujarati. So you have it there before you. So don't worry. So we have substituted. So in case it is a regression equation, you will have a plus beta of x plus the error term. Okay, but since it is a co-integration model, you're giving it as beta 1 plus beta 2 into the independent variable in your model. Any one can be the independent variable plus the error term u. So in this case, PCE we are taking as the dependent personal consumption. So consumption depends on income. So PCE we are taking as a dependent variable y, okay? And then the constant is nothing but beta 1 plus the co-integration coefficient is beta 2. Co-integration coefficient is beta 2. DPI is nothing but the variable x. And then UT is the error term. Now, in case you have more variables, x variables, that is to say more independent variables, so they also will add, and then you'll have more co-integration parameters. You'll have more co-integration parameters, okay? So co-integration coefficients will be more. So here, the co-integration coefficient is nothing but beta 2, okay? Right. So equation 1 is known as the co-integrating regression equation, co-integrating regression. Then the slope parameter is beta 2. So we are looking like how you have beta in your regression equation. Here, this beta 2 is your co-integration parameter or co-integration coefficient. Okay. Now, you can extend it to any number of regressors, but to understand it's better we start with just one. So let us first do the co-integration regression of PCE and PDI, the two variables we have taken. So I have given the path over here. So let us follow that. So please go to your Gretel. Please go to your Gretel. Then, so go to model. Okay. Select ordinary least squares. So yesterday when we finished with that. Select ordinary least squares. You can also select model from here. Look at the beta hat. You can also select it from there. So that also will help you. Okay. Yeah. So please select the model. Right. So select model, ordinary least squares. Now, the theory, according to the theory, we see that it is consumption which is very much influenced by income. Okay, it is not vice versa. So we're going to take consumption expenditure as a dependent variable, and we're going to take disposable income as the independent variable. Okay, disposable variable as the independent variable. Okay, so we're not going to do any kind of addition and all that. And then please give OK. Please give OK. Right? So please copy the results. Please copy the results. How do you do that? Edit, copy. Okay. So edit, copy, give OK. And then please go to your Word file. And then you can paste it. So you can give the heading as co-integration over here. So you have pasted the results. Okay. Now, when you look at the results, so what all do you need to see? You see here. So when you, it's like reporting your regression only. So please see here all these values that you have. Okay, all these values. So you have the coefficients. Okay, so you have them there. Then you have the t values. So I'm highlighting them for you. Okay, you have the t values, and then you have it also in your handout, so don't worry. Right? Okay, fine. So it's done. So it says that, like, you know, there is significant relationship between these two variables. Okay. So all of you know that the variation in expenditure is explained by the personal disposable income, 1 unit of change, and how much variation can happen. So that coefficient is given here. And it is significant because p-value tells you that it is less than 0.05. So it is significant. So there is a significant effect of significant effect of personal disposable income on expenditure. Okay, right? So, so correctly, you know that this is a co-integration because the first condition was that the two series has to be non-stationary, but their combination is significant, or the combination is linear. So we have seen it. It is proved. But it is still not done. It is still not done. We have to check the stationarity of the residuals to confirm whether this is really a cointegration or not. Because if the residuals are not stationary, that means this is not a cointegration. Okay, so it has to be stationary. So all of us know how we can do that. So first, before doing that, what you have to do is you have to go back to the cointegration, yeah, you have to go to the cointegration output. Okay, then please save residuals. Please save residuals. So before we conclude that this is a cointegration, or you are sure that there is cointegration between these two variables, before we conclude, we need to do one final litmus paper test. That is to see whether the residuals are stationary. And so you have to do that. So before that, please save the residuals. So go to the output window and save residuals. Save residuals. So it gives a name, U hat 1A and all that. So we have only one, so let it be U hat 1. Okay. Okay. So residual from, I'm putting it as residual from cointegration. Okay, this is just for our understanding. So what have we done? We are saving the residuals. We are saving the residuals. So we are in point 3.4, 3.4, same point. We are saving the residuals. Have you all done that? Okay, save the residuals. Save the residuals. So once you save the residuals, did you notice that a new variable has been created called U hat? Okay, U hat. U hat is saved. Now we are going to step 4, point 3.5, step 4. We're going to check stationarity of the residuals. We're going to check stationarity of the residuals. So you have done it so many times now. So I think you can do it very, very fast. We're going to check the unit root of U hat. We're going to test whether there is unit root or no unit root. So all of you know that the null is there is unit root. And in this case, it means if there is unit root means there is no cointegration. And the alternative is there is no unit root. And that means that there is cointegration. Okay. So if there is unit root, that means there is no cointegration. If there is no unit root, it means that there is cointegration. Okay, so please go to variable, then unit root tests, augmented Dickey-Fuller, right? And then you please give OK. Please give OK. So when you have given OK, please copy the results. Take it to your word output. Okay. Right. Oops, sorry. I think just a minute. Okay, I have pasted the previous one in the wrong place. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I hope all of you have pasted. And please look at, so this is the ADF test for U hat, which is nothing but the residuals. Okay, then please look at the T value and the P value. I'm highlighting it. So all of you have it in your screen. Please look at it. Report the result. You find that the P value is less than 0.05. It is less than 0.05. So since it is less than 0.05, the result is significant. You are rejecting the null. The null saying that there is unit root. Okay, so you're rejecting the null. That means you are accepting the alternative. The alternative says there is no unit root, implying that there is cointegration. So please look at your handout. In your handout, you have concluded that the two series, that is personal consumption expenditure and personal disposable income, are co-integrated, okay? So there is a relationship between the two. There is a relationship between the two. Unlike your regression, here we call it as co-integration, right? So please follow the steps one by one, and we do not stop there. Now, some of you will be wondering whose co-integration we just did. So what we did is Engel and Granger's procedure, So why is it something that fascinates me? I'm just going to tell you why. The reason is because, so here we find the person whom we are talking about now. It's Granger and Engel, so a handsome man over there. And they got the Nobel Prize for this. Can you see it on the screen? Nobel Prize in Economics in 2003 for co-integration. So it is good that we are learning a Nobel Prize winning methodology, right? So because they brought in this change, right? So that's the reason why we thought we can study it. And of course, there are so many different methods which you can, once you understand one, you can understand the other as well. Fine. Now we are moving on to the next step after co-integration. The next step. So co-integration tells you something. Just before we go into that, so please look at the results of your co-integration. Please look at the results of your co-integration. You notice that, where is that on my screen? Now I have it here. So the results of your co-integration, the co-integration coefficient, okay, 0.96, that tells you that these two series, they come into equilibrium at one particular point. They come into equilibrium at one particular point, or this is the long-term equilibrium. Or in economics, we call it as the long-run marginal propensity to consume. So the long-run marginal propensity to consume is explained by the co-integrating regression or the co-integration. It is explained by the co-integration. But then we want to see whether in the short run, by making certain adjustments, certain corrections in the error term, can we have a quicker equilibrium? So that is called as error correction model. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, right? So we are going to do error correction. So what we got now is the long-term effect of co-integration. So let us see what is error correction. Okay, this is not, so when you have more than one variable, we go in for vector error correction. We just have two, we call it as error correction. So error correction is not something that was first used by Engel and Granger, right? So it was already used by Sargan. So already it is used by Sargan, and it was popularized by Engel and Granger. And you know very well now that they already also got a Nobel Prize. And they also developed a very, very important theorem. It is called as the Granger representation theorem, which says that if two variables, in this case PCE and PDI, are co-integrated, that can also be expressed as an error correction model. So that's what they said, okay, right? So this error correction model also, I've taken it from Gujarati. I have given the model specification, the error correction specification. So the error correction in simple terms, over here, we are trying to understand the short run equilibrium between the two variables. So how are we going to do it? So for error correction, we're going to use the differenced series. We're going to use the difference series, and then we're going to lag the residual, and then you're going to lag the residual. So please look at your handout, and also please look at your Gretel sheet. We're going to do that. Yeah. So all the specifications that we have seen, I've taken it from Gujarati. So or you can take it from any textbook which you are comfortable with, you can understand. Okay. So please go to model. So we're doing error correction now. Please go to model. Okay, please go to model. Ordinary least squares. Go to model, ordinary least squares. Please clear what is already there. Please clear everything. Now we're going to take the differenced series. Please take differenced personal consumption expenditure. Differenced personal consumption expenditure. Please don't take PCE. Please take differenced PCE. Okay, that is to say the series which has become stationary after differencing. Differenced PCE as a dependent variable, And please take the difference PDI as the independent variable, Then you will be lagging. So error correction means you're making some adjustments in the error term. So we are going to add some lags. So we're just going to add one lag for, for the U hat. Okay, please take U hat also, and add a lag. So please add, you can just lag it once. So how do you add lag? Please see here. So you have added difference PDI as the independent variable, and also the other independent variable is U hat, the residual. Just a minute, I think somebody. Do we have to use level data for? No. Nidina ma'am, you have to use the difference series. Now we are no longer in co-integration. We are in error correction. Nitish sir, univariate series, we are coming into autoregressive models, AR models, which will be taken from tomorrow. Now we're talking with two variables, that is for co-integration. So if the single variable co-integration doesn't come, Prakash sir, this is not manipulation. This is just purification of the data. We are just, these are statistical procedures which are accepted, right? Yeah, so please go to lags and add one lag for U hat. Please add one lag for U hat. Okay, right? Please add one lag for U hat. Do you notice that in your regressors or in the independent variables column, you have U hat 1, U hat minus 1. That means there is a lag 1. So for error correction, it means that you're making, you are lagging. Why are we lagging it? In order to reduce the autocorrelation in the error term. Okay, so by default, when you, yesterday we did not see the correlogram. So that will indicate the autocorrelation function, the partial autocorrelation, etc., which we'll be seeing in tomorrow's class and following classes. So this is just to reduce that. Okay, right? So give OK. So what did we do? Dependent variable is difference PCE, independent variables difference PDI, and the lag of U hat with one lag. How did you do the lag? You went to lag and then you selected U hat and you put one lag. Okay, give OK. So you've got the result. I'm sorry, you've got the result. So copy it, copy the result. Take it to your Word. So now we're doing the error correction. Take it to the Word file. Okay, right? Paste it. And you can look at the results. So you have it here. So you have the results here. So you find that the difference series of PDI has got a significant effect on the different series of personal consumption expenditure. So the short-run equilibrium or the short-run marginal propensity to consume is explained by this coefficient, 0.29, right? So it is significant because it is less than 0.001. And then you can explain this coefficient as the short-run equilibrium, or you can explain it, in this case, it is the short-run marginal propensity to consume. Okay, so I have given the conclusions over here. In the co-integration lab. So, okay, so it says that, so what does the error correction say? That the personal consumption expenditure series, in this case, it adjusts itself to changes in PDI, okay, in the same period, like, you know, so we are identifying at what period, and you can interpret, as we saw, that this can be interpreted as the short-run propensity to consume, and what you got in the co-integration equation as the long-run propensity to consume. So for your practice, you can try Ramanathan's exercise 10.5 when you, today evening, when you, after we end the class, you can check co-integration and error correction using Ramanathan 10.5. Okay, right. Just a minute. So we're going to the third section of today. We're going to the third section of today. We're going in for causality. So we saw co-integration, we saw error correction model, and then we're going in for co-integration. I'm sorry, we're going in for causality. So sometimes this term is a little confusing. This term is a little confusing. I always keep wondering. So, so I come from a very rural village. Okay. I'll answer the two questions, Nidina, and another question which was there a little later. I'll just finish this. So in my rural village, people always, let us say, there is a youngster who is not studied properly, who did not graduate, who's not in a stable job. Like, he goes for a job and then he just quits. He's not very responsible and all that. So immediately the elders would say, you get this person married, you get this youngster, young man married, so he'll become all right. Okay, I don't know about other villages, so this thing is saying. So I used to always think, does marriage cause the, does it lead to, or does it affect, does it influence a person to become responsible and so on? So the word causality is a kind of a metaphysical word, but that is not the sense that we use in statistics. So there is a lot of debate about it. Like, does this particular variable really cause the other one? Okay, but we are not using it in a metaphysical sense. So different explanations are given. The one possible explanation that I found very sensible is that if an event happens, if an event A happens before B, then we can say that A is influencing or causing B. Okay, it is not that B is causing A. It is A goes before B, therefore A is influencing B. So this is one logical reason given for Granger causality. Edward Leamer, he prefers the term precedence over causality, and Francis Diebold prefers the term predictive causality. Okay, so they're not using the metaphysical causality term, they're using different terms, but I hope you understand that. So again, for causality, there are certain, you have to be sure about the theory. So as we already saw, I'm taking the same theories which we previously saw. So you have, for example, purchasing power parity theory, which says that there is an impact of, there's an effect of inflation on exchange rate. Inflation on exchange rate. Fisher effect says there is an effect of inflation on the interest rate. International Fisher effect says there is an effect of interest rate on exchange rate. And this consumption income, all those theories say that the consumption, there is an influence of income on consumption, or income is causing consumption, etc. So this is the theoretical background. So we cannot straight away take two variables and then go in for causality. There has to be a theory behind it, a strong review which says there is some connection between the two, right? So let us do a very simple Granger causality test. So what we're doing is the Granger causality test, right? So we're going to take another data set. We're going to take another data set. So please open your Gretel, right? Open your Gretel file. I think we have taken 17.5, 17.3, okay? Open data, sample file, open data, sample file. Okay, open data, sample file. Open data, sample file. 17.3, 17.3. Okay. Fine. So, yeah, so you have you all taken that? 17.3, I'm sorry, 17.3 from Gujarati again. Open data, sample file, Gujarati 17.3, Gujarati 17.3. So very quickly we'll let us do. So here automatically let us understand like what is the context of this data. So there is a lot of question in macroeconomics whether interest rate is causing money supply or whether money supply is causing interest rate. Okay, so there is that is a theoretical background. So we are going to study whether interest rate R causes, within quotes, which is I said it is not a metaphysical cause. It is, we use the word Granger cause. Okay, causes money supply, that is M, or does money supply M Granger cause R? Okay, so the direction of the arrow indicates which variable is causing which one. So if the arrow goes from R to M, that means we are checking whether interest rate is causing money supply. If the arrow moves from M to R, we are checking whether money supply is causing R. So again here, the model specification is taken again from Gujarati. You can take it from any standard textbook. So there are certain conditions. There are certain conditions for causality as well. By the way, so this is bilateral causality. We're saying that we're trying to study, we have just two variables. We're going to study whether each are causing each other. So it is bilateral causality that we're going to study. But your result may not be proving that there is bilateral causality. The result might say that there is bilateral causality, or that there is unilateral causality, or that there is no causality. So it could be anything, right? So there are certain reminders. First reminder is that the two series have to be stationary. So we are not going to test the stationary since it's already given data, and then we assume that it is stationary. Okay. So then the direction of causality. So somebody asked me this question, this lagging. So lags, the number of lags, usually the software assumes the number of lags. But then if you're going to give a huge number, like you're going to give 10, 11 and all that, and then you are achieving your result, or you're reducing the autocorrelation, that means the variable itself is not that very strong. The observations are not very strong. They're not very stochastic in nature. And therefore, you have to take a more representative set of observations, right? So the decision of how many lags, I think one of you had asked a question, it is decided based on the Akaik or Schwarz information criterion. So that tells you how many number of lags is sufficient. Usually Gretel and all the econometric software automatically assumes the number of lags. But in this case for causality, we will be going one by one. We'll not take many lags. For this example, you're going to just take 2 lags, maybe 3, 4, but then you'll have to report at which lag you are achieving this causality. So the result, if you're able to achieve it at one or 2 lags itself, it is good. If you don't, you just report it as it is. Okay. Then here we'll not be reporting the entire results of the Gretel that you're going to get. We'll only be reporting the F value and the P value, the F value and the P value. So you just need to present that. You need not present the entire coefficients. Okay. So if you should not, if you're taking, let us say, if you're taking 2 non-stationary series and then you're going in for causality, then it becomes a spurious causality equation. And another problem is there, if one series is integrated at one level, sorry, one series is stationary at level and the other one is not stationary at level, there also you will have a problem. So that becomes spurious. Okay, right. So we are going to test bilateral causality. So we'll have 2 null hypotheses. So null hypothesis 1 is R, that is interest rate, does not Granger cause M, that is money supply. And alternative hypothesis, null hypothesis 2. Null hypothesis 2, money supply does not Granger cause interest rate. Okay, so you have 2 nulls. The first null is R does not Granger cause M, that is the arrow R to M. And then you have the second one, M does not Granger cause R. So you have the arrow going from M to R. Okay, so I have given the process, very simple here, very simple process that we have. So let us go to Gretel. Very simple, Gretel. And then you go in for model. Then you go for multivariate time series, vector auto regression. Multivariate time series, vector auto regression. So in this case, you're checking whether both are influencing each other. So we call them as both are, we're having a determining function on each other. So both are considered as endogenous variables. If you're going in for a unilateral causality, then you can put one as endogenous and the other one is exogenous. So we're going in for, okay. So please select the two variables, that is M and R. Please select the two variables, M and R. Please take them to the endogenous variables box. Endogenous variables box. So once again, I'll repeat. Model, multivariate time series, vector auto regression. Okay, select that. Then you'll get this pop-up box. Then what you have to do is select the two variables for which you're studying the bilateral causality. Then you take them to the endogenous variables box. Take them to the endogenous variables box, right? Then I said you can add lag. So we're going to see at what lag that causality is happening. So you please go to lags. Please go to lags. Then you're going to have just two lags. Just two lags. Okay, just two lags. So what did we do? You went to lags. Then you're going to specify the lags. See, did you notice the default it has set is 4? So software itself will assume certain set of lags, but let us stop with 2 just for you to show that one particular, for one particular hypothesis, there is a kind of a causality, and for the another one, there is no causality. That's why I took 2, just to show that. So we're going to take 2, and we're going to give OK. We're going to give OK. Fine. So what did we do? Model. What did we do? Model. Okay, multivariate time series, vector autoregression. Then you took M and R to the endogenous variables. You went to lags. You added 2. You added lags 2. Okay. Then give OK. Give OK. Give OK. Just a minute. Please give OK. So you will get a huge result. You'll get a huge result. So the first one is for the first equation. The first result is for the first equation. That is to say, the causality from R to M. Causality from R to M. Please don't worry about the entire results. I told you we just look at the F value. Look at the F value. So here also you can copy it, take it to your Word output. Take it to your Word output. Okay, but just see what we're going to report. So we're just going to report this. F value is 12.927 and the P value is 0.001, indicating, okay, so the null says that R Granger causes M. Null is R Granger causes M. So here we find that, I'm sorry. R does not Granger cause M. The null is R does not Granger cause M. So the P value is 0.001, indicating that it is less than 0.05. It is significant. You're going to reject the null. So the first null hypothesis is rejected. The first null hypothesis is rejected. That is to say, R Granger causes M. R Granger causes M. Okay, that is for the first. Now please move the cursor down. You find the second equation. The second equation is here, which is M Granger causing R. M is M Granger causes R. That is second equation. Please scroll down. Please scroll down. So, please scroll down. Please scroll down. You will find the results here. So we have given 2 lags. So it is taken for all the lags. Please look at the results. Please look at the results. F value is 37.8. I'm sorry, this is not the one. I'm sorry, this is not the one. See, all lags of M1, all lags of M1, all lags of M1. Please see here. F value is 3.22 and P value is 0.052. 0.052. 0.052. So what is the null? The null is M does not Granger cause R. M does not Granger cause R. So that is what we are seeing. So the influence of M on R. So the F value is 3.22 and the P value is 0.05. The P value is greater than 0.05. The result is not significant. We are going to accept the null. The null is M does not Granger cause R. M does not Granger cause R. So please look at the results that we have reported in the handout. Please look at the results we have reported. Okay. So please see here. Please see the results. So direction of causality, interest rate to a money supply. You're going to see so the null is R does not Granger cause M. The P value is less than 0.05. Therefore, you are rejecting the null. The decision is rejecting the null. So your conclusion is R is causing M. In case of the second equation, M Granger causes R. The null is M does not Granger cause R. The P value is greater than 0.05. So you're accepting the null. So this is not a bilateral or a bidirectional causality. This is just a unidirectional causality. This is just a unidirectional causality. Okay. Yes. How can you say M cause R by seeing the equation? Usha ma'am, it is based on theory. It is based on theory. And then we are just testing. We're just testing it using a Granger causality. Okay, we're just testing. So the theory tells you whether one is causing the other or each series is causing each other. And then you're testing it using data. Okay. So I'll just show you one simple paper that I had wanted to share with you. Yeah, I think I have downloaded that. Let me see. I don't know where that is. Here it is. Okay, very simple paper. So this was written in the year 2018, I think. Yeah, I had written it in 2018. So I love to travel. And one of the countries I had just returned from was Egypt. And so I'll tell you the background of why this paper came about. It so happened after I reached Bangalore, I had Egyptian pounds with me. Yeah, so just a minute. I had Egyptian pounds with me. And so I wanted to exchange that. I wanted to exchange the Egyptian pounds. Then I went to the airport. So it was just a few days after I landed in Bangalore. When I went there, I realized that the exchange rate of the pound had dropped so much, the pound had depreciated greatly. And then there was no point because I was losing a lot of money and exchanging. So I went back to Google and I started finding out what happened. It so happened that the Egyptian government had so the Egyptian central bank had devalued the pound. And when they devalued, automatically there was a huge depression and the pound started dropping. And that is the background of this paper. So what I was explaining to you. So you have the theoretical background, okay? So the theoretical background is the relationship between exchange rate, the exchange rate movement and the stock performance here. So I've taken two things. One is two variables. I've taken the stock index of Egypt, EGX, and I've taken the exchange rate of the US dollar in terms of EGP for a period. So just to see what has happened here. So here you have the report as how we did it in your output. I asked you to copy and paste. So same thing, you have it presented. So you have the two-step co-integration test of Engel-Granger being presented here. Okay, the null hypothesis is given and I've reported the results. Also the error correction is done and the Granger causality also was done. Okay, so and then I've reported the results here. So as you have it, so I think, yeah. Just one thing which we did not do is, see the residuals, I said the residuals of a co-integration equation is stationary. So you can take a graph and present it in your paper. So this is how it will look. The residuals of a co-integration regression, co-integrating regression, co-integration would look like this, what you have it. So it will be around the mean. And here we have the causality as well. Okay. Here. So I've tried bilateral or a bidirectional causality. First one is the stock index of Egypt. Sorry, the stock prices there is influencing the Egyptian pound, the value of the Egyptian pound, and the value of the Egyptian pound is influencing the stock prices. So one is accepted, one is rejected. Okay, so it is unidirectional causality. So with that, I think I'll end. So there was one question here. So today I have been very successful in sticking to the time. Okay, so just a minute. Yeah. Yeah, so Usha ma'am has asked the question, if we don't do differencing, then what won't be available? Yeah, I think you're asking why should we do the differencing? So that is the main principle behind co-integration. The main principle behind co-integration is that, like, you know, in case, so if two series are not stationary, if after differencing, and then you find that their relationship is, or their combination is linear, then you call it as a co-integration. So for co-integration, you have to do the differencing. For without differencing, what you get is co-integration. But then if you want to do error correction, you have to really go in for differencing. Another reason why you have to do differencing is that to find out at what level, that is to say at what order of integration, they become stationary. If two series become stationary at first order, then you can go in for co-integration. But then you find that one series becomes stationary at first order, another becomes stationary at second order, you cannot go in for co-integration. You have to go in for some other VAR models. Okay. Jyoti ma'am, I think you also are there. I'll share the poll. One small poll is there, and then also we'll take up some questions. So I'm very happy today. I've stuck to the time. I've given a small poll. Please answer the questions. Any questions are there? You can also ask while you're answering the polls, or you can put the questions in the chat. Nidina ma'am, the perfect number of flags you will decide using the AIC criteria. So when you get the output of a co-integrating equation, you will have the AIC and the Schwartz criterion given there. So that itself will be deciding. And by default, any software will be taking its own, it will be taking the required number of flags. I'll just explain the second question. It means that the variables have to be integrated at the same level, same order. If that is the meaning of the second question. So integrated at one or integrated at the same order. It should not be different. Jyoti ma'am, are you there if you want to add anything? So residual graph. So for co-integration, one of the conditions is that the residuals are, residual is stationary. Residual is stationary. That's why we are showing it, just to show that it is stationary. Anyway, you did the test. So you need not show the graph. If you want, you can show it. Because anyway, you did the test. You did the unit root of the residuals, and then you found that it is stationary. So that is enough. So need not necessarily show the graph. The graph just shows that it moves around the mean. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll. Many have not answered. I don't know whether they're wondering whether to answer or not. So shall I think I've given sufficient time. Ma'am, different levels of different orders of integration, we'll be taking it in later, but you cannot run co-integration. Okay, we'll take it later when we go a little more higher in our workshop. So we'll be taking that little later. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll, share the results. So yeah, so the first question, a series that has unit root is said to be non-stationary. So yesterday we saw that, today also we saw it many times. So if the null is, there is unit root. Okay, that means non-stationary. Alternative is there is no unit root. That means it is stationary. So when you say that a series has got unit root, that means it is non-stationary. Then in a co-integrating equation, the variable should be integrated at the same order. Okay, so that many of you have said true. It is correct. Then residuals of a co-integrating regression, regression have a unit root. They should not have unit root. Okay, so it is, the answer here is false. Okay, so some of you have given true actually. So that is how you say that there is co-integration. Okay, so that is to say the residuals do not have a unit root. So if the residuals have a unit root, what is given in this question, that the answer is actually what you should have selected as false. Okay, so thank you so much. So Raju sir, over to you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nelson Jason Michael, sir, resource person of the faculty-driven program, for your knowledge enriching sessions. Of course, thank you all the participants for your active participation. Topic will be discussed tomorrow is auto-regressive models, and the resource person will be Dr. Jyoti Manoj. Thank you, one and all. Now, Ajit sir, Amir sir, you could end the session.